So here's my backyard hose. It has a kink in it. This is not the best hose to get. You want one that has thicker walls so that the hose doesn't kink or buckle up like that. I have one in front that's a better hose. Okay, here's my garden so far on the 4th of July. The tomatoes are coming along, but they're nothing to boast about because this garden is not very heavy growth, fast growth garden at all. Nothing to boast about. I'm just celebrating it though. It's the 4th of July. Corn is supposed to be knee-high the 4th of July. This one is, I have little plots of a combination of corn and pole beans. The pole beans wrap their vines around the corn stalk. So I got that going. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 little strategies here about the size of a big dish for how they're planted across from one another. The pole beans and the corn cooperating together with their growth. And here's an example of what's going on. I've got bean vines from the pole beans wrapping themselves around the corn stalk. This one should probably stick with that corn over there, but it's on this one. I'll fix that, but the corn supports the pole beans. That's the idea. And that's the way the Native Americans grew corn and beans, which was their staple diet. These are smaller corn plants, not quite knee-high 4th of July. This one is about knee-high. And here's a summer squash plant that I plant between those little other planting strategies. This is a butternut squash. Here you can see there's going to be a flower that buds out of there and becomes big, yellow, beautiful, and eventually the ovary of that flower will mature and become a butternut squash, perhaps ripe around September. And let's see, here's another pole bean squash strategy. I try to water the garden so that I don't get the water so much on the leaves as I do get it around the base of the plants, which I did this morning. I used a hose without a nozzle because my nozzle broke, but I just I water around the base of these plants. Now here is the potatoes. They are beginning to show blossoms, and they are the sunniest part of the garden. And this is a mini garden, a very small garden, nothing to boast about. And let's see, way over there, the collard greens are volunteer collard greens that came up from seed that was shed from collard greens that grew in the garden last year. You kind of want to compete with the corn, so I probably need to pull some of those up so that they don't take too much moisture and nutrients from the corn growing there. And I have some dubious broadleaf plants over here. I don't know what they are. They might be cucumbers. I planted them from transplants and didn't lay them as well as I should have, and so I don't know what they are, but that one over here might produce a few cucumbers. And I've got some onions that just come up on their own every year over here in this shadier part of the garden. I've always got parsley that is volunteer in this garden. I've got parsley all over the place. And I eat it every day in my morning breakfast green drink. Here's a parsley bed that's going to seed. It still has young plants in it. And over in the greenhouse, this planting trough doesn't have very many spinach plants in it. Who knows why? I planted a lot of seed. This trough has far more spinach plants in it, and the seeds were planted all at the same time. I'm trying to nip the forming seed heads off of this and put them in my food, my salads, and my drink, so that they'll bush out maybe and produce more leaves. And I have a parsley plant here that just loves to come up every year on its own. And I stuck, I think these are cucumbers. I stuck some cucumber transplants in here. I don't think they're going to do very well, but this is collard green again. It came up on their own. And here's a pot with basil and some volunteer parsley in it. Here's another pot of basil. Here's a pot of parsley. I just threw some seed in there. I didn't know what it was, and now I can tell it was parsley. And here's a mix of parsley and basil. Now, with basil, it wants to form eventually a seed head. And if you want it to bush out, you want to thin it. In other words, you don't want too many other basil plants around it. And then you want to pinch off the seed head. And then that plant will bush out and produce more leaves. I learned that on the internet. So, all right, well, here's my water. I put the water in this bucket, let it sit for quite some, 3 hours to a day. The chlorine gas dissipates from it, and then I pour it in this, and I water the plants with this one here. My thermometer says it's 80 degrees, and it's mid-morning, so that's what's going on here. I guess that's about it. So, 4th of July, corn is supposed to be knee-high. Alrighty, there's my knee. There's my corn. Now, just keep it growing. It's not a big operation. I'm not boasting about it. I'm just celebrating my little garden. And we'll check on this garden later on. That is it for this video.